Hello, everyone. We are back live from the Ord Compound House. Today, joined by some real deal builders, OGs in the space. Been running around here for a long time. Finally getting to meet Danny in person. Amanda, been on the panel a couple times, so excited to talk today. We've got Amanda and Danny from OnChainMonkey. Why don't you guys give a quick intro to yourself? Amanda, who are you? What do you do?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having us. Really excited about today. My name is Amanda Terry. I am co-founder and chief operating officer of MetaGood. MetaGood is the company behind OnChainMonkey and Ordinal's marketplace, Osura.
Beautiful.
Morning. Yeah, I'm Danny Yang. I'm the creator of OnChainMonkey and co-founder, with Amanda here.
Totally. So I will say, we're at Bitcoin Nashville, right? So we've got a mix of people. We got Rune people, we got Ordinal people, we got laser eyes walking around here. Danny, you've been in Bitcoin for like so long, like it's pretty wild. Who have you been meeting here? Like, what have been like the vibes? Are you meeting like old school maxis? Are you meeting new builders? How's Nashville been so far?
Well, it's been great, and it's a mix of people. I mean, this I think is the biggest Bitcoin conference ever. So a lot of people here. Yeah, the OGs are here. They're new people. I think lots of new people. Well, the early events that happened were Ordinal's Nashville. So that's like the Ordinal's crew, and we're part of that, and we know a lot of, or we see a lot of the same, I guess, Ordinal's folks, both on crypto Twitter and in the recent Ordinal's events here. Yeah. Actually yesterday I went to the Litecoin Summit. So
yeah, how was that?
It was nice. It's so so it's run by the Litecoin Foundation, and Charlie Lee is very involved in that, and Charlie Lee is also OnChainMonkey supporter. Yeah. So it's great. I mean, Litecoin is an OG cryptocurrency.
That's his OG. I mean, that's before Ethereum, so right? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, no, Litecoin is going strong. So it's good to see their community.
Yeah.
It's about community, right? Like
totally.
They're right now we're in this big Bitcoin community, but Litecoin has a strong communities. And yeah, it's OGs. They've been around many years.
Totally.
And so that was yesterday, and today, yeah, I think we'll be heading over to Bitcoin, the main conference,
nice.
A little later today.
Oh yeah, nice. So I was gonna say, you guys had a pretty exciting release recently. Osura was like, I mean, that was is that the biggest gen art drop on Bitcoin so far?
Well, okay, so it's Bitcoin Ordinals, right? It's actually great for art, and that's what we've been saying, for I guess year and a half.
Yeah.
And in particular for gen art, right? So generate art, which is you take a little piece of code, right, and then that creates or generates a bunch of art. And so for gen art on Bitcoin, especially when I say or long form gen art on Bitcoin. So when I say long form, I mean like gen art that's generates a large collection, so 10,000 or more. And that type of generative art on Bitcoin, there's only a handful. Floriforms is one that launched early this year. But in the last 3 or 4 months, there's been no long-form gen art launch on Bitcoin. So we helped Alexandre, who was an awesome generative artist.
Totally.
His work has mostly been on Ethereum, but he's done other chains too. But he's maybe quite well known for the friendship bracelets.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
This really amazing generative art, long-form generative art. It's a large collection, right? It's even more than 10,000.
Totally.
And so he's been working on this collection that we just launched called Frontline. That's a 10,000 collection on Bitcoin, on Ordinals, his first Bitcoin launch. And yeah, it was, I mean, he was taking kind of a big leap into Ordinals and doing it, as I said, last few months, no one has done anything like this, right? Yeah, it was the launch. I think it went great, and the art is great, and you can, and so on Sure, you can see the thumbnails now, so you can actually easily view it in a gallery view and see kind of how the art looks approximately, because it's actually it's a dynamically rendered art.
Yeah.
And actually it's very computation intensive. So when you open it, it actually takes quite a few seconds or even minutes for it to really render fully on your display. So we did that for 10,000, and it took us a lot of CPU power to do it. And they're also not fully rendered. They render up to a certain point. So you can see it as it's being rendered. And the art is it's called Frontline for a reason, because it's about the front line that's formed between two opposing forces or sides.
Yep.
And so you can see the front line as it's partially formed, you can say, in the thumbnails that we we put on Osura. So yeah, check out Osura.
And I believe it was actually the first long form generative art collection on Bitcoin that incorporated traits from another collection. So we actually incorporated traits from OnChainMonkey Genesis. So if you're an OCM holder, you could pick your monkeys that would then influence your front line based on the fur traits, if you had a rare earring 3 through 6, and then also like your token ID, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, totally. I was gonna say frontline's like the like analogy of like I guess opposing sides battling. Here, that's happening. I'm seeing BRC20 versus Runes people. I'm seeing Maxis versus Ordinals. It's like a
Trump, not Trump.
Yeah, exactly. Trump, not Trump. Exactly. It's an apt, I don't know, analogy to what's been happening in the space. How did you guys first get hooked up with Alexis? Because he is like friendship bracelets was. I mean, I remember the drop like it was like it was yesterday. Because every friend I was like, check if you can claim one. You got an art block. You got anything. Check your wallet. And then it was just like one of the funnest like 3 weeks. Like all we talked about was friendship bracelets, I remember, and then so he's super OG.
Yeah, I mean, it did over 60 million in secondary trading. I mean, that was like Ethereum, right? But yeah,
yeah. I mean, the story with Lexi goes way back, actually. So OCM launched in 2021 on Ethereum, and the inspiration for so OCM was inspired by it's on-chain art, and it was inspired by things like art blocks because it's art blocks is I mean, OCM is also generative art, right? It's a piece of code that generates a whole 10K collection, right? So the idea or kind of the inspiration for OCM for generative art is really art block. Art blocks built that generative art community on Ethereum, and so after OCM came out, there were actually a bunch of collectors who came over, right? Like these art block collectors who kind of appreciate that. Because it was still pretty. You could say it's a niche market, back years ago, and so we had a bunch of collectors who overlapped, and I think one of the art collector. Crypto art collectors, he was friends with Alexi, and then he introduced us to him, and then we chatted and we kind of hit it off.
Nice.
And we collaborated with him on a few things. So maybe Amanda can talk about kind of the first collaboration.
Yeah. So some of our advisors, one of them is Luis de Hoyos, who was the producer of Game Changers, Racing Extinction, and The Cove, and he had projected animals that were going to be extinct on the Empire State Building to promote his film and to make awareness about animal extinction. So he had an opportunity at COP26 to project some art during the climate conference on the side of the Armadillo Building in Scotland while world leaders were meeting. And we happened to get connected with Alexi, and we said, how cool would it be to put his generative art IRL on the side of this gigantic building to inspire 1 billion people to think about the climate change crisis. And so that's exactly what we did. And so, from an artist perspective, obviously you've been in galleries, maybe you've done other live exhibitions, but there's nothing quite like seeing your art, in Scotland during COP26. So we worked with them on that. And then, fast forward, originally we were talking to him about doing a collection on Ethereum. Yeah. And then when the Ordinals protocol came out, we said, hey, Alexi, what about Ordinals? You've never done anything on Bitcoin. Yeah. Bitcoin is a great medium for art, right? Because it's the most secure, has the most longevity. So if we can make it happen, would you be open to that? So he, as Danny said, he really did take kind of a leap of faith as a very successful generative artist for decades. I mean, I think he did a little on Tezos too, but mostly Ethereum to come over to Bitcoin. And so this was his first 10K.
You brought him. You convinced him.
We brought him over. We brought him. I mean, we've also worked as, I've talked about, we worked with Patrick Emmett as well. And there's a number of artists who've approached us to help them with art on Bitcoin.
I was going to ask that because Patrick, obviously, he's one of my friends. He's one of my I argue with him, almost weekly right now about art stuff because he's always, stirring the pot, thinking of great stuff. And then Alexis, you've got 2 amazing people. If you're an artist out there, how would you be part of Osura? What should you do to get on your radar and be like, hey, I got something good. I want to work with y'all.
Yeah, so actually I had to tweet this morning because I was looking at the data for just how the mint went, the frontline mint, right? So because it was only a week ago, and many people didn't think we could mint a 10,000 generative art collection on Bitcoin in this current market.
Oh, yes.
It is first it's kind of bearish. NFTs are kind of bearish right now, and Ordinals is so new that there aren't that many people in Ordinals, right? Compared to Ethereum, there are a lot more people in Ethereum than Ordinals. So yeah, I mean, we were able to do it, and then, so I was looking at the data of how did it go? Now it's a week later, and what's kind of amazing is that so the OCM community, we actually went out to a lot of different communities. In fact, we're targeting the communities that really care about art. Right, they collect art. They have a kind of a more collector mentality. So that was the majority of the mint. But OCM had, because it was, OCM is like the main partner project. We OCM community had the largest allocation.
Yep.
And I was looking at it and go, well, okay, so who really shows like their kind of like, for example, you can look at the listings on the marketplace and see like, who's selling, right? And I looked at it and I looked at, like I looked over 50 listings, the lowest ones, and said like, are OCM selling? And there's like 0 OCM in that, which is pretty amazing considering that OCM only minted,
So you hear that, all you OCMs out there?
Yeah,
Okay,
so
Danny's looking. Okay, if you, he's looking.
no, the curiosity. Yeah, I got
Put
you.
it to a different wallet if you're okay. Sorry.
No, but what I mean is, if you're an artist, right? I mean, the artist wants to find collectors that care about their art, right? And so, like, we do have a community here in OCM that actually does really care about art. So, join our community, talk to us, share your art. We want to hear about it.
We did offer a allow list to over 300 communities, not just ordinals, but also other chains.
Nice,
and, we integrated also the Magic Eden wallet so we could make it easier for people on Solana and Ethereum to also be able to buy ordinal. So we really did make an effort, but we did have meetings. We literally had spreadsheets and we're like, let's talk about these communities and how do we think, they're going to interact with the art, and are they collectors and are they good actors in the space and are they builders? And those are the people we're like, let's bring them in. And then we gave, very small allocations to, a number of large, number of communities.
Now you have good data too, because you have all those communities. Now we can also go back and look at who, because you did evaluations of all of them. It's actually interesting. How do you tell, like, okay, these are good collectors, these are flippers? How can you figure that out? I mean, there's data out there, but there's also just vibes, I guess. But
yeah, well, I think it's, and you want a mix of people, right? It's not like, I think, who was talking about this recently? For example, like when you launch a large collection, like when you launch like a small collection, like 5 pieces or 10 pieces or even 100 pieces, is not that important, right? Yeah. But when you have a large collection, like 10,000, you actually want a breadth of different people, right? You do want the hardcore collectors who really care about art. You definitely want to include all of them. But because there's 10,000, there's enough room for getting basically new people. And some of them are more, like new, and they may not understand art, but you want to also bring some of them in, right? Yep. So it's kind of getting both depth and breadth of kind of the market. And so,
yeah. If we looked at like who gave allow list to OnChainMonkey, we wanted to honor that back to them. So there was like that process, but it was a process.
Yeah, there is a thing, like you want, sometimes people's first piece of art can be really special too. Like they weren't an art collector yet. You start in PFPs and all of a sudden you're like, oh, here's my first one, and you can start your art collection. So you don't want to always be like, only if you have a Fidenza, then you can buy this. Like someone's got to start somewhere. So
and this, we want to get new people into ordinals too. So it's not like we were trying to reach also like the Ethereum art collectors who haven't touched ordinals yet, and some of them are kind of a little bit against ordinals. So it's like, well,
I will say I'm one of those, Ethereum art collectors that came over to Ordinals, and I'm still in the chats and all the Discords, and it's funny because every day you just see another person defect, another person go over. But I think a lot of it too is it just takes time. Like when Ordinals first came out, they're like, okay, Ethereum art. Who wants Ethereum art? Buy Ordinals. After 6 months, then a year, then a year and a half, people start to say, okay, you guys are building over there, you're staying. So it does take a little bit of time. Okay, so like you've done Patrick, you've done Alexis. Is there anyone? Oh, nice. Is there anyone like? Are you going to go deeper into the Gen Art side? Because Patrick was actually on the AI art side, right? And then now you've done Gen Art. Are you looking for different types of art each time, or are you like going to go deeper on this Gen Art thing? Because truthfully, that's the biggest Gen Art release, right? On Ordinal, so you kind of are pioneering it.
I mean, we're pretty open to any art. So we want people to join and talk to us about their art, and we'll help them.
Okay, nice. What were the technical limitations of like doing the 10K? Like how much like planning and work, and when you actually were doing the inscribing, like what was that like? Was that you have a war room going and?
Yeah.
In his brain, that's Danny's war room.
Well, so this one's particularly hard because, as Amanda mentioned, we also incorporated some traits from OCM Genesis, and doing that type of mint process is difficult. Because we were also, doing parent-child recursion, and there's lots of moving pieces.
Totally.
So, but there are other ways to do it that are much simpler or easier to launch, that are less stressful and intense.
No, but you chose the stressful one.
Yes,
you got to pick it. Yeah.
Because we didn't know how many monkeys could choose to choose their monkey, but they could also choose to just do random mints and see if they get something better than what they have currently. So I mean, we didn't actually know the inputs for the collection until the mint was completed.
Totally.
Which some people are like, well, why don't we get the art right away? It's like, well, we have to generate the art from the inputs post mint. We have to finish the mint to even 100%. Know what's going to happen. Yeah. So Alexi, Danny, myself, none of the team knew what it was going to look like before it was done.
Yeah, that's a little wild. Wait, so what was that like? Were you guys on like a call together and you're generating as they're being generated? Like, yeah, that must have been exciting.
Well, no. So once we get all the information, it's kind of all automated too.
Gotcha.
So not so, and also people may not have seen it because it was hard to tell the way it was launched. But there was in the art, there was a block hash or block number that the art would reveal. So before that, no one actually would know what it, and it was basically randomized by the block hash. That was a future block, and that happened, I guess, a week ago. So people who saw it in their wallet right when it was inscribed to them, when they first opened up in anywhere on ordinals.com, they couldn't actually see the art. It would just say, to be revealed or something like that. Yeah, and then it was later that day. So we set it in a short window that it would reveal, basically that day, or actually a couple hours later. So
I was just saying, Frontline being one of the more intensive projects like ordinals.com, there's limitations sometimes. You know what I mean? Sometimes it takes a minute to load some stuff up here. How'd you guys think about where the art's going to be viewed? Are you thinking of like ordinals.com or Magic Eden as like the primary viewing place, or?
Yeah, so we're thinking both today and also in the future. Yeah. So in this case, Alexi designed this art that it'll age well with time because it looks good now. But you had to render it for maybe 30 seconds on your laptop. Maybe on the mobile, it works on some. You just have to wait, and it's kind of lower res, so it still comes out nice. Like you can see it in different resolutions. The overall look is the same, but when you have it on bigger resolution, then you can see some more detail, and it can be can look nicer. Especially when you put on a bigger display, it looks nicer. So in the future, when you have like 8K or maybe 16K display right somewhere, then it'll look quite good. But you need a pretty powerful computer to render it really quickly.
Well, that's good. That's a flex.
You'll have that in the future.
Totally. Well, no, I like that too. It's like, oh, you're an art collector. You don't got a good GPU. What are you doing? Do you like art or not? You gotta encourage the nerds to invest in their art showing ability, I guess. So, I will say there's been a kind of a trend in ordinals where people are trying to figure out you can't do what you can do on Ethereum, right? There's limitations there's size limitations. There's a bunch of restrictions you get to, and like. We've seen artists have to adapt to that in different ways. Some of it, like that's why pixel art always has thrived on chain, is because it's a lot simpler to do, or SVG, simple stuff like that. How was that with Alexi, like actually figuring out what the limitations were? Did you find out he was like, okay, I want to do this, and you're like, okay, that's not gonna fit. We gotta back up. We gotta compress.
Yeah. So what's unique about Alexi is, so he's been a generative artist for almost, I think, or more than 2 decades, right? 20 plus years. But his background is actually he has a PhD in computer science.
So you're good. You're good.
He understands algorithms. He understands all the different algorithms used for generative art, right? So that is his field. So his work is pretty much code that's on chain and very small. His work works well on, or rather, he doesn't need the. He's been an art blocks artist for a while, but he actually doesn't need the art blocks framework because he already writes code that generates art. In fact, it's harder for him, or more restrictive on Ethereum because of how hard it is actually to just take his code and then put it on chain and render it. And the amazing thing about Ordinals is actually kind of perfect for that. Really, we just had to take his code, and if we didn't involve the whole using recursion to do trade from Genesis, he could have just done an inscription just off the bat. Yeah. But then we did this extra stuff that was actually kind of complicated part. But there's certain types of art that works really well for Ordinals, and basically it's actually Alexi type of, which is generative art. You write code and it renders and displays a bunch of outputs that also take random inputs and creates cool art.
Yeah, I was gonna say that that's lucky. I forgot that because also I know Alexi. I've seen him like talk. I think he does Rust too. He programs in quite a few cool different languages. But like, if you're already got that like computer science background, you're in this world already. I think there's a thing on Ethereum. A lot of people came over and they said, "I'm not a programmer, but I am an artist." And then they learn the tools. And then one of the problems you saw is like, okay, it's not efficient. It's a little big, you know. And then now we're seeing the trend of you have to have the skill, the tools to be able to like, you know, make it fit on chain properly. And he's already doing it. So yeah, that's beautiful. So Osura, for like, how are you guys thinking about this platform like in the future? How do you like? It's like right now in my mind, it seems like you guys are trying to work with like top people, but across, you know, like you got Patrick, you got Alexi, so you got, you know, Patrick's disturbing stuff all over. Alexi, absolute art blocks, OG, you know, Gen Art, you know, God. Like, how do you position yourself? Are you? It feels like you guys like the technical art platform, or do you guys, inside this ordinals art space?
Well, right now, because it's so early, you know, we have to build a lot of infrastructure, and we have the white glove service, which takes a lot of effort. So that's why we've launched so few things, because each one is actually a big undertaking. And I think as we build out more infrastructure, then it'll be more of a, we can basically more self-serve. But right now it's still very white glove.
Nice. Okay. So yeah. So in the beginning, it's like, you know, you got to come over here. We're gonna make sure you do a beautiful launch. In the future, it might be a platform where I got some Gen Art. I'm gonna go over here. This is where I want to actually inscribe stuff. Nice.
Yeah, and also, you know, to highlight the art so that you know, it's not lost in all the noise. So
totally.
And also looks good there.
Well, I was gonna ask you, how do you do that? Because right now, how do you keep the art not getting lost in the noise? You know what I mean? I sometimes go through just ordinals.com and I look at every single inscription, and you see waves of art come in. You see waves of, you know, BRC20s or whatever happen. Like, yeah, it's because the space is moving so fast now with how much we're inscribing. How do you like stand above the rest?
Yeah, I think it's we haven't launched many, so you know, you kind of stand out just because we've done so few.
Yeah, totally. So on the side, 'cause I'm obviously I'm an art nerd, so I'm always like talking Osura stuff. So OnChainMonkey, obviously it's been like one of the communities that came over to Bitcoin so early. I mean, you like took the community and brought them over, and it's like all of my OnChainMonkey friends are Bitcoin, you know, like ordinal crazy. They got the best bags. they know everything that's happening here. So when you come to something like this, are you finding yourself like OnChainMonkey? You've converted people from ETH over to Bitcoin, but are you finding like you're now recruiting people straight from Bitcoin, or are you more like onboarding people from the other chain?
I think right now it's still, I mean, not just OCM, but the whole ordinal space is pretty much, you know, Ethereum and Solana people from other chains. But we're here at Bitcoin Nashville because we want to bring in, you know, more Bitcoin people, right? To convince them that, see, the Bitcoin community is actually very unique. They are hodlers, and you can even see that on just how Bitcoin, the chain itself, works.
Yep.
Like prior to Ordinals, no one was using Bitcoin as sending Bitcoin transactions. Everyone's just holding Bitcoin.
I'm not going to spend my sats. Stack sats.
So everyone just holds Bitcoin. They don't do anything with it, and they're happy. They're happy that way because they believe, you know, nothing else beats Bitcoin in terms of, you know, holding some asset, right? So to get them over, you have to really impress upon them. Well, you can actually do more with this. Like, this is worth holding over Bitcoin, and that's actually very hard, right? So you have, and it takes time, right? But they're starting to see that ordinals can be interesting, and then within ordinals, and what are the possible interesting things, you know, in ordinals. So
yeah, I was gonna say that, you know, there's, if you're a person who's just been like, you know, trying to stack your Bitcoin for so long, you're like, you want a graffiti on my money? No, hey, that's in my vault over there. But at the same time, someone who has gold, they're like, it's in the vault, it's good. But some people do like to wear a gold chain. They want a gold ring. They want to show off. I got an asset
that's a really good analogy. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to flex. You want to flex your, you know. Yeah. On that side, so when you're talking to actually like these like type of backsies, I'm curious, do you talk about like rare sats in that kind of world? Because that's another thing that if you talk to like maxis, you can sometimes say like, you might have some of these rare sats. You might be able to pull out a couple and make some extra money and get more Bitcoin. If you just want to, if you don't think that rare sats are worth it, but you can sell them for more, you can get more sats. Yeah,
so that's a great point, and that was actually one of the cool things of how, you know, Casey launched Ordinals, in that he basically he said, well, there's this, you know, there's this rarity scale, right? Like uncommon sats and rare sats, and so he basically put all these within the Bitcoin ecosystem, like all the hodlers suddenly have these things, right? So some of them are going to look in and say, oh, you know, actually I have this stuff. Maybe I'm going to participate.
That is a good way of getting people to be like, you're already collecting. Like, I didn't even know I was collecting. You already are. So, check your wallet, and companies like Magic Eden and others actually having features when you're transferring stuff out of your wallet saying you're about to transfer a rare sat has been a pretty good, I think, helpful, even though I think that the maxis aren't in the Magic Eden wallet, so.
Yeah, not yet, but gradually.
Yeah. So for that, since you guys you guys have the OCM, MetaGood, Osura, there's also all the other platforms. How do you guys interact with all of them? Do you find yourself Magic Eden, hey guys, OCM, obviously there's a presence on there, are you having meetings with these people and trying to say hey, this isn't working on, because you guys are doing more technical stuff. Right?
Yeah, so what's cool about the Ordinal space is it's very collaborative. So Magic Eden, Xverse, Leather, we all talk to each other and work together to try to support this new protocol. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be built, and each of these companies has done a lot in the last year to build.
We're definitely on Telegram groups with all of them, and we give feedback. I mean, you gave a lot of feedback going into this. Like on every launch we've done, that things weren't supported yet by infrastructure, and I think that's happened. I mean, but Dan, you've given a lot of feedback to help push the Ordinal's infrastructure forward with feedback, right? And then it makes it easier for the next collection who wants to do whatever.
Yeah, and everyone's very responsive. All the teams are very responsive. So yeah, it's this is kind of very unique time in
I was saying that's a common theme I'm hearing from a lot of people. It's people were saying back even in the ETH days just a couple of years ago, it was more PvP, and now it's definitely more collaborative. Everyone's trying to lift up the ecosystem versus only us. We're not telling you what we're doing. So
it always says we want to grow the pie, right? So it's of course I'm going to go to the other PFP events, of course, and there are investors too, we're all we all try to support each other, and we're all I think trying to grow this pie, right? We all realize we believe in Ordinals, we believe in Bitcoin, we know it's early, and we want to just grow it. Right, grow the community, bring more people in.
Totally,
right?
Infighting doesn't
people
help
aren't
that.
usually just going to own one NFT. They're going to buy a bunch of collections. So whoever brings the next person in, they're going to buy your stuff, they're going to buy other people's stuff, and that's great, right? 100%. And they'll get liquidity, and then they'll buy other stuff. So it's we just got to grow it.
Well, it's also interesting too because it's we're the community aspect of PFPs. It's you have a Discord or a Telegram or a Twitter chat where everyone's talking in one. And if they're all just in one and that they only can focus on that, sometimes it can get kind of toxic and negative because there's no news. It's where's the news? They have news. You have a lot of groups to go to. It's I like baseball. Baseball season's off. I'm going watching football. I'm not where's the baseball? You can kind of go around to different places. Do you find, are there specific communities you find you have a good overlap with OCM?
So I think there is some a tweet recently that showed it had a 2x2 grid showing kind of the actual wallet overlap. And actually, we've done some of that analysis ourselves just to look at. And I think one community we overlap with quite a bit is Pizza Ninjas. So
really?
They're also a nice community, and they did a lot of community building events here.
Totally.
We own them. They own. I mean, Trevor also with Bitcoin Frontier Fund is an investor in MetaGood. Okay, so there's a lot of overlap there.
Totally.
For sure. Yeah, their event was
fun.
Inscribing Nashville was incredible. But then I actually went off to the Bit Gala. I went to the Ledger event, and then I went back out there to the Pizza Ninja event. And it was super fun.
It looked
that night.
I didn't get to make it all.
Yeah, I didn't do the dunk tank. I will say that, but I mean,
Wait,
I did.
Anyone get in that dunk tank?
Jan, I think, went up from Xverse, and I'm trying to think who else.
Right.
I was with Tio last night at Karate Combat, and I was like, did anyone actually do the dunk tank? And I think Jan, he mentioned a couple of people, but I mean, Jan's stuck in my head because apparently he was the second one, and he was a bit the throw wherever they were throwing was a little too far, so he was just sitting there not getting wet. And I heard, I don't know who did this, but someone just went up there and hit dunked the thing and dunked him. And I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you're mad at a founder, you got to get him in the dunk tank. That's the key. Okay, you dunk him.
He's too dry. We need to just get him wet. Let's go.
Nice. So you mentioned protocols a second ago, and there is ordinals. Things are building so fast. I'm talking 1,000 builders. There's not just runes that have runes aren't that old at all right now. BRC20 before, maybe there's BRC20 2.0. There's things like DMT. There's so many things happening. How do you keep up with all of those changes? And when do you decide to disseminate that to the community? When it's let's educate, because it seems like OCM always has been a pretty education focused group. Yeah,
definitely. Well, and that's one thing about having a community is that everyone has something to offer, and people learn about the different things and they share, right? So in Discord they share, or on Twitter they share.
Yeah.
And we share what we know, but we don't know everything. So
totally.
Yeah.
Well, so something like runes or BRC20. When do you say okay, we should look at this and maybe we should be incorporating this into the MetaGood world? How do you like make that decision? How do you know it's mature enough, or, you know, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's no single answer. I mean, right now we have, well, we were busy with Frontline, you know, for the last couple months, and then coming up will be so OCM has the Genesis collection on Ethereum that's, you know, in this process of moving over.
Yep.
Over 80% have moved over.
That's the amazing stat. That is just amazing. Yeah.
And then so there's Genesis and there's Karma, the PFP, you know, that like nicely hand drawn one on Ethereum. So that one is coming over, and it'll have some cool features on the Bitcoin side. So that's going to be our big next.
Okay, cool.
Launch.
Nice. So back a little it's a refocus in the OCM community, and you're you know, helping them. Break that a little bit. Like, what's the difference if I'm coming into OCM Karma versus like the original OCM? How do I decide?
Right. So there's two for OCM. There are two main collections. In terms of, I mean, there's also a few smaller ones. Like Dimensions is actually really
Dimensions.
very cool. 300 collection of you know the art on Bitcoin. Very kind of OG collection. But the two main like big collections are Genesis and Karma. And so one is 10,000. So Genesis is 10,000. That's the original collection that launched in 2021 and had this teleburn process. And with the teleburn, it actually includes new art. It includes these deconstructed, that abstract art, and the certificate of ownership, which is this conceptual art of kind of how do you own a digital asset on Ethereum and on Bitcoin.
Totally, yeah.
So 4 inscriptions for every monkey that teleburned over. So obviously we were eligible, obviously, for a lot of airdrops too.
Totally,
so
yeah. That's a great thing for everyone, yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, the Karma, I mean, it's an interesting story. So Genesis, Danny obviously created, it was done in a single Ethereum transaction. That's why the art is relatively simple to get it all to fit in a single Ethereum transaction. And then we did a 10,000 airdrop of desserts. So kind of think like, I guess, the mutant serums or whatever, right? And then you could eat, the Genesis monkeys could eat their different desserts and then create their Karma monkeys. And the Karma monkey was actually an OnChainMonkey holder who tweeted kind of a version of his monkey, and it was so popular, got so many likes on Twitter that reached out to him. Turned out he was part of the Hollywood animation team behind Ice Age, Rio, and Ferdinand.
Oh, wow.
And so he hired his former boss and his colleague, and they came over, and for over 9 months, hand drew the Karma collection.
Wow.
But all of the traits from the Karma collection actually, obviously, are reflected from the Genesis monkey. So, you know, you have your OCM Genesis, you eat your dessert, and then you can get your Karma monkey. But it's beautiful art. And that is also coming over to Bitcoin. So that's kind of the next big thing we'll be working on. It probably, you were saying, will it still be the highest resolution art on Bitcoin at this point, or do we know?
I mean, it depends on
okay.
That's hard to say, but what I mean is, it'll be pretty cool how we're doing it, and you know, people appreciate kind of how to do something kind of new and innovative on Bitcoin. And so, but if you're a new person to OCM, basically, I think these are the two main collections that you could come in, and there's different ways to basically, you know, I guess acquire them. So there's Genesis on Bitcoin, which is the main one, but there's also the one on Ethereum. So you could actually buy Genesis on Ethereum still.
Oh, nice.
There's 1,000 something left there.
There's a good price arb right now if you buy on Ethereum.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then you can still port over to Bitcoin for Genesis.
Oh, wow.
And then obviously all the Karma that's on Ethereum will also be moving to Bitcoin as well.
There's
so
some alpha people.
It's a little alpha there, alpha there.
That was good. And actually, speaking of that, you guys have such a good community where you have like builders actually in there who step up here. Spirit asked the question too. Danny, apparently I got to ask you about bots. What's going on? You know I'm Began Bot. You know they call me Began Bot for a reason.
Wait, why did they call you Began Bot?
My name's Began. I make bots.
You make bots.
That's where I came from.
Like real robots.
No, like any bot.
Like art bot.
Like Twitter bots, Discord bots, Twitch bots.
Like not a robot.
Yeah, or
like
my job for a while was making bots to like be fake ticket buyers to then prevent bots. My bots have been kind of my, yeah. So Danny, I don't know what Spirit means, but he always knows something. He's got some alpha.
Yeah, I mean, well, bots are floating around the Bitcoin blockchain right now.
What do you mean they're floating around? You deployed some? You want to share any info?
We deployed a bunch of bots, so they're floating around.
Can you share what they do? Come on, now you're being mysterious. I want to know, okay?
Yeah, they're hanging out in people's wallets.
Okay, there's bots hanging. Okay, see, like I feel like you and Spirit know something that I don't.
We have not yet publicly announced what they're going to do.
Okay, see, Spirit. He's
there you go, Spirit.
Stuff. Okay,
there you go, Spirit.
Okay, that's good. There's some alpha happening. That sounds pretty exciting here. Okay, well, you know, right when the bot info comes, you got to tell me, okay? Because no joke, I'm a big bot fan. All right, I was banned from Twitter for the first time in like I don't even know, it was like 2013 for my first Twitter bot, and I've been getting banned ever since. Just for fun stuff too. I wasn't doing bad stuff. I was tweeting poems and stuff. So, on the OCM side for like the Ethereum over to Bitcoin, you said something really interesting, which I haven't heard talked about too much, which is you actually get this certificate of ownership between the two. Like, how did that come apart? And can you kind of break down like what that looks like?
Sure. Well, and basically, it's a conceptual art piece inspired by one that Mitchell F. Chan did back in many years ago. I think 2017 or so. Called it's nicknamed IKB for that was inspired by an earlier work by an artist named Klein, and IKB is International Klein Blue because he was a conceptual artist, and
I love that you know this.
Of course. He got his own blue, his own special blue. And remember, you can't recreate it. Other people have come in and said, I'm going to try and create the blue. They couldn't do it. They tried. He spent forever. He's one of the most interesting artists. You actually had to pay him in gold for the paintings, but I always love. And apparently he threw the gold in the river too.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love it. I love it.
There's a long story on that. But for us, it's digital ownership, what does it actually mean to own something, right? So like, you bought a JPEG. What does it mean to own it? It's what the community says you own it. And Bitcoin's the same way, actually. Bitcoin, there's a mysterious ledger there's no real ledger, but it exists somehow. It's a concept, right? That people have. That actually a lot of people in the world have this concept, right? The Bitcoin ledger, they have this concept, and because there's this ledger says you have a Bitcoin, then everyone agrees you have a Bitcoin. Yeah. Right. So what about for NFTs and these other digital assets? Well, Ethereum has a smart contract, and it says, well, you own this. Or on Ethereum, it's the ERC-721 kind of protocol for NFTs, and it's basically kind of a unique identifier for NFT. Right. So it could be on IPFS, it could be on centralized server, but what you actually see on Ethereum is just this long hash or some ID. Right. So that is the social consensus of, well, you own this Bored Ape, for example. For OnChainMonkey, because it's an on-chain work, the smart contract actually generates more than just that unique number. It actually generates an SVG file, which then you can render on a computer, and you can say, well, you own this image of a monkey. So it's a little bit more, I guess, concrete or less conceptual, maybe. Yep. But okay, now what does it mean to actually port from Ethereum to Bitcoin? Then what is that concept of ownership? And so that's what that art, the certificate of ownership, represents. So it's actually an inscription on Bitcoin that is of a kind of a ownership certificate. That's right, yeah. And it has actually the hash. So it's custom for everyone. Whoever teleburns is custom for that person because it actually says which Genesis number it is, the transaction hash where the teleburn happened on Ethereum that's inscribed on Bitcoin, all these details. And so that then because the way teleburn works is that you actually send the Ethereum asset to an unspendable address. Yep. So you cannot, like even though we say you still own it, or we all agree that you still own that Genesis on Ethereum too, and on Bitcoin, you can't actually send it on the Ethereum network, but you have a certificate on the Bitcoin network that says you actually own that. So that's kind of the idea of this. And you could take one step further, like so for IKB and for Mitchell's work, or you were talking about throwing the gold in the river. So for the original the Klein work, right? It was that there was a ritual that you would do with the artist, and he did it for a few collectors, right? Yeah. They went to the riverside or riverbank, and then the collector would come and bring some gold, a certain amount of gold, and give it to Klein, and then Klein would take half the gold and throw it in the river, and then he would keep the other half. That's his payment, and then he would write a certificate of ownership, basically, or receipt to the collector. But the collector was supposed to, I think, destroy it or something. But what Mitchell did with his work was that concept too. Like he had this Ethereum smart contract where you could pay to mint it, and half of it would go to Mitchell, half of it would be burned, and then you get the certificate, which is the thing, the kind of part of art. And then to truly own the art, you're supposed to burn that certificate that you just paid for. Yeah. And for Mitchell's work, and so Mitchell's work actually was auctioned on Sotheby's several times. And during the previous bull market, when it was really hot, a single piece sold for over $1 million.
Oh my God! Wow.
So it's actually, and there are quite a few collectors that collect like that, because Mitchell is a fine artist.
Oh, totally. Well, the Boys was like one of the funnest.
Yeah.
One of the most. It was like fantasy baseball in art. It was like one of the funnest. Like I literally showed my dad. He's like, I don't care about this art, this weird art stuff you're doing. I'm like, check this out. It's fantasy baseball. He's like, all right, it's pretty cool. All right, this one's pretty good.
Yeah. So only one person has ever burned Mitchell's work, right? And
really? Yeah.
And it's funny. The stories. It's actually my friend who minted it back. He minted the first and second. Of Mitchell's works, and he minted 2 because he wanted to burn the second one. So he still owns the original, the first Mitchell work, and then the second one he burned. And he was the only person to actually burn it.
Wow, nice. Well, he's getting the point of the art. Like he understands it.
He actually showed like he truly owns it because he actually burned it, right?
Yeah.
He shows that he owns the work. So, but you could say, well, maybe the teleburn is kind of like that. You teleburn the Ethereum asset, but you can even take it a step further. Or maybe you need to actually burn the Bitcoin asset. And one thing that Ordinals, so Ordinals didn't have an official burn mechanism for inscriptions until recently. I think about 2 weeks ago, it was just added to Ordinals.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
So
wow.
you can actually burn or like inscriptions. You can actually burn them. So maybe someone will actually try to burn a certificate. But that would be a...
Remember, if you're going to burn something, just be first. That's always what I say. Okay, you want to be in the history books.
You could be the first to burn a...
I love that. I didn't realize that. I love anytime you can like... With so many like new art collectors too, they don't realize that art is the funnest thing ever. People are like, what? It's fancy stuff in museums. $50 million for an all blue painting. I'm like, Yves Klein is a crazy person. He is hilarious. He is like, art is fun, and like linking it up and giving people history. I think it's like such a good thing. So, another question here actually, which is it's so true, Danny. You've been building so long in Bitcoin. You've been around for a long time here, and obviously things are a little different now, right? Obviously, Ordinals kind of changed everything. Since you've been in it so long, how does that affect what you're building in the future? Or when you're talking to other builders who haven't been in it as long, what's like the different in perspectives you see?
Yeah, so I think there's some things that will just hold true over the long term, and one is just Bitcoin is here to stay, and it hasn't even changed very much over the years. So Ordinals was actually very, very special in that something like that popped up, in the last year and a half. Because it's just so hard to do things like this, and I think that we're taking advantage of the fact that there is Ordinals and you can do some cool things on Bitcoin now, and Bitcoin, and we're seeing it too. Bitcoin has been gradually building community adoption over the years, and I think this cycle will be actually also another important one for Bitcoin. Just we see it a lot more in the news and just kind of global stage these days.
Totally. What was it like with your like building experience before when Ordinals came out? Like, was it really like, oh, this is obvious, this is easy, it's easy to build on right away, or did it take some time to be like, okay, Casey, what do we got? What are we doing over here?
Yeah. Well, first, I think Bitcoin, even though the scripting language for Bitcoin is very simple, it's just hard to build anything on.
Yep.
And it's funny when I started, the exciting thing was to build on Bitcoin. So back I guess 10, 11 years ago. It was like building on Bitcoin was an exciting thing, and people were trying to figure out how to like manipulate these scripts and signatures on Bitcoin to actually do something interesting.
Yeah.
And what happened was Ethereum came out, and it provided actually a very powerful tool set to build stuff on blockchains, and so actually all the kind of developer energy went to Ethereum for a couple of years, and then kind of the things that are launched, a bunch of chains launched that are kind of inspired by Ethereum. And so that was where all the development was. And you had DeFi Summer and all this, like growth in the last couple of years. But now we're seeing some of that on Bitcoin, and we're seeing a lot of people. So that is exciting to see.
It's interesting. I mean, I know they got me. They said programmable money. And I was like, I already had Bitcoin. I was like, programmable money? Okay, I'm going to ETH. I'm a nerd. Let's go, code. But then you're seeing now a lot of the ideas that were proposed and being talked about, people were trying on Bitcoin, are now all coming back, right? Kind of curious, what do you guys think about OpCat? Do you think it's actually going to happen? Are you going to build on it?
So OpCat is actually it's been around a long time, even longer than Ethereum.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been added, or rather, it was added and removed, but it hasn't been added back again. And I think it will also take time because Bitcoin is Bitcoin. It's very slow moving in terms of making
getting
like
everyone in the world to agree to agree to a change. It's a little bit of work. It's not the easiest thing,
I mean, that's also, you could argue that one of the benefits of Bitcoin. It is so stable, and and decentralized, and you can't just force something to change.
Totally.
And, like we can't do it. Governments can't change Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin is just Bitcoin.
Yeah, totally.
And I think though within the next 10 years we'll see some change in Bitcoin. But I don't know about the next year.
Okay, so you think OpCat might maybe not in the next year, but maybe.
I think it's hard for Bitcoin to change in the next year. What we'll see probably is that the price will go up. I mean, there's a lot of more adoption. So, and in fact, the funny thing is, as the price goes up, there's less chance of things like OpCat changing.
Yeah, you're like, it's working. My money's going up.
Exactly.
It's stable. Stop messing with the, don't fix a broken, clock
So
that's working.
if you really want OpCat to go in, you need to tank the Bitcoin price.
Okay. Don't tell. Okay, Udi is that what Udi's trying to do? No, I'm just joking. So for something like OpCat or changes to Bitcoin, how do you follow along with that stuff? Are you still on the actual message boards, chatting with people, or you just wait for stuff to actually bubble up when it's ready?
Yeah, I try to keep up, and there are many people who try to keep up with things happening in Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana and all the chains.
Do you find yourself, since you were so OG, do you have any friends that are like, "What are you doing over there? We're laser eyes. Why are you're graffitiing on the money?"
Well, I actually think that view is actually not that common, and most people, even the active, they're happy hodling. So if people want to pay miners a lot of fees, they're fine with that. Just pay the miners the fees. I have my Bitcoin, I'm hodling it.
Totally.
It doesn't affect me.
Yeah. There's a couple of very loud people on the internet is the problem that will be fighting against it here. So nice. Before we wrap up here, thank you so much. First of all, standing meeting person, first time, great. I can talk about a bunch more nerdy stuff. But what's next for OCM? What should we look forward to? What's going on?
Yeah. Well, I think we're gonna make Osura nicer. Frontline, we'll show off Frontline more. That's quite new. And then the Karma upgrade to Bitcoin is something we're working on.
Beautiful. Amanda, anything that if you're OCM, how's the best way to get involved? If I want to start meeting the community, everyone's like, OCM's got a great community. I'm going to dive in.
We just had a great breakfast this morning.
Nice.
One thing I took a TLDR from was I'm always like, okay, Discord, we can communicate. I remember asking how many monkeys were going to come to Bitcoin Nashville Discord, and only like 3 or 4 people respond. We had over 80 RSVPs, and about 50 people came, 60 people for breakfast this morning.
Wow, that's a big
And
breakfast.
I did not go through the Discord and make sure that they actually held monkey, but I did have a little question. Are you an OCM holder? Are you a Frontline holder? What's your Telegram? And I would say, 80% were holders. So we got to think about other ways of getting our marketing messaging out to people for even, the mint moving over, moving Karma over to Bitcoin. Like we can't just rely on Discord. So, but I guess we always are doing events. We are, if anyone's here in Nashville, we'll be helping to co-sponsor the Bitcoin Startup event, Startup Lab event from 2 to 6. We did a little sponsorship here. So tonight we'll probably be here rocking out. I heard last night was very fun.
Oh yeah, it was.
And we pretty much every event that one of us, usually we tag team on speaking.
Yeah.
I think this is the 3rd event we've actually been at together. I think Danny will likely be speaking at VCon in LA.
Nice.
So
Yeah,
that's
excited,
coming up. As other things come up on the radar, there's always opportunities to meet us in person. We are holding spaces from Osura every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific. We're bringing on great artists, collectors, curators. We've had folks from Forbes Web3, from Michael Buana from Sotheby's.
Nice.
Ian Rogers came on from.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, who is like, I'm such a fangirl, and we hung out with the Ledger Friday the other night.
Nice,
But he came on. He's an OCM, and
Nice.
I think they have a big announcement. I think it happened today at 10.
Ledger does?
Yeah,
What'd they
today
announce?
at the conference.
Okay.
So they did an
Well, it's
announcement
leaked in.
today.
Okay, I'll figure it
Yeah, so anyways, we were at our breakfast, so we'll have to check the Twitter. But
And there's one thing you guys do really good, okay? If you need to find who's at OCM, look, they got the gear on. That's the
yes,
key, okay?
yes,
All the OCM
yes.
people always rock.
people love the drip. People love the
Yeah.
drip. IRL spaces. Hop into our Discord. There's a lot of people coming in from Frontline, so there's a lot of new people. We're doing a lot of obviously we have a great mod team who's always welcoming people and answering questions. So very friendly place. If you are on Discord, if you're not on Discord, there are, come on Twitter Spaces and join us and come up, ask questions. We like to bring new people up who want to ask questions too. So very friendly community.
Beautiful. Yeah, everyone. I'm just going from I have so many OCM friends that are just deep in the game. They're all educated. They're all smart. You guys just have a community of it seems like.
We do a lot of education. We do a lot of spaces. We've done some Zoom calls for a royalty. Nice. We do Discord chats as well. So Danny will just come on and
nice.
answer people's questions and kind of talk about like what we're seeing in the market. So, I mean, to even get over 80% of a 10,000 ETH collection to ordinals, that's a lot of wallets. That's a lot of downloads. At the time it was X first, right? 100%. Now there's Magic Eden can do it too, but at the time it was, you know, a lot of people educated on ordinals, right? So we've done a lot of this over the last couple of years.
Totally. Yeah. So if you're anyone out there who's like, you know, looking to get into ordinals here, OCM, great community to hop in and actually like learn about the whole ecosystem, the whole space.
Yeah, and you know, we have a great community team, OCM Rising Times. People keep now post Frontline, they're coming a lot like, oh, how do we collab? We want to give you guys a allow list. So OCM Rising Times on Twitter is a community-led group. Their DMs are open. So, I mean, our community is also getting invited into a lot of other communities all the time. So it's a good time to be a monkey because they're managing all the allow lists for the community's drops.
Beautiful. Well, thank you guys so much for coming here. We're going to be back with some more. Danny, Amanda, find them. You'll see them. You can see them. They got all the gear on right now here. And we'll see you guys soon for some more interviews. Thank you again. Rise.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, Rise. Thank you. Have a great rest of your time in Nashville.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll be in this room here talking to people.
And it is air conditioned in here, so it's nice.
Yeah,
it's hot out there.
Oh, it is hot.
You're in a good spot.
Nashville's hotter than I thought. You got a Jerry?